It's Talk of Iowa from IPR News. Today is Horticulture Day. I'm Charity Nebbe. If your yard and landscape looks worse for the wear after a few weeks of extreme heat, it might be time to think about planting some perennials that truly thrive in the heat of summer. Aaron Steil, Iowa State University Extension horticulture specialist, just happens to have some excellent suggestions. Hello, Aaron.
Good morning.
So, it has been hot, and a lot of the summer has also been quite dry. Are you seeing the results of that throughout the state? Are you seeing lawns and yards that look a little sad?
Yeah, it's not uncommon for us to get into kind of mid to later summer and have plants that are a little tired looking. And so there are some out there, though, that just really do thrive in these conditions. And it's nice to have these plants in your garden so that you have something great to look at, even when some of the other stuff is a little ragged looking.
All right. Well, let's dive into your list. Where do you want to start?
I think I'm going to start with a very familiar one, but a great one nonetheless, and that's purple coneflower. Just the classic Echinacea purpurea, the kind of common purple coneflower, is a great perennial. What I love about this plant, apart from the fact that it just does well in hot and dry and a wide variety of conditions, is that it's a great garden-sized plant. So it doesn't get huge, but it's still very impactful in the landscape. There's some really nice cultivars out there. There are actually dozens and dozens of cultivars out there. I like just the straight species, but there's also a hybrid out there called Cheyenne Spirit that is particularly nice. It comes, it grows very readily from seed, and it will flower the first year, and it comes in a lot of different colors. So you get this nice kind of rainbow of colors, reds and whites and purples and oranges, and it's just like a really pretty mix of plants. And when you consider that purple coneflower, individual plants may not live in your garden for a very long time, but it sets seed, and so you'll have a patch of purple coneflower in your garden for years and years and years if you want it.
I also just love how long the blossoms last.
Yeah.
They endure for weeks, and they're so beautiful. And I'll point out, of course, that purple coneflower is native to Iowa. There are a number of plants on your list that are native to Iowa and native to other parts of North America. That makes a lot of sense that those are the plants that really thrive in our summer heat.
Absolutely. I noticed that too. And the other big group of plants on my list that I really like for these types of, hot and dry weather conditions are a lot of the ornamental grasses, especially those that are native to our tall grass prairie. In particular, big blue stem, little blue stem, and prairie dropseed are some of my favorites. There is a big blue stem called Black Hawks that is the Perennial Plant Association's Perennial Plant of the Year this year. And what makes it so amazing is that it has, it emerges kind of green, kind of a dark green color. And then as the season progresses, it gets darker and darker purple colored. And by the end of the season in early fall, the plant is almost looks black in color. So it really stands out, especially when you consider that it gets 4, 5, 6 feet tall once it's fully established. So that's a really fun, newer cultivar of a wonderful native grass that looks great in the garden.
All right. What's next on your list?
I think looking at stuff that's a little shorter and smaller, I like the stuff that sits at the end or the edge of the border. And I feel like, I kind of like collecting plants a little bit. So I like these little guys because they can kind of, be tucked here, there, and everywhere. And so one of them that's on my list that I see around, but I don't see in people's landscapes as often, is Ozark sundrops. So this is another name for it is Missouri evening primrose. And this is another prairie native. It's kind of a rambly plant. It kind of has the same habit as a geranium, a perennial geranium might, where it kind of it sits kind of low to the ground, maybe a foot tall, but it gets these beautiful, bright yellow flowers that are actually kind of large considering the size of the plant. They're this really cheery yellow color. Each flower lasts only a day. They tend to open up kind of afternoon and then will kind of close the next morning or late morning. And then they produce this really funky looking fruit that has like 4 wings on it. That's kind of fun. But it just kind of sporadically blooms all season long. And it loves hot, dry conditions. I have one of mine perched on top of a retaining wall. And that's a great spot for it because it's well drained. It does get kind of hot there. It's in the full sun and it just thrives.
All right. What's next?
Another one that fits this kind of jewel box kind of feel to it is sea thrift or armeria. And I'm seeing more and more of these in garden centers in the last couple of years. This is a plant. I mean, it's probably no surprise that plants, just like a lot of other things in our world, kind of come and go in terms of popularity. And this one is starting to rise again in popularity and availability. And there's some really nice cultivars of it. It has this kind of little tuft of grass-like foliage. This is not a big perennial, and it is not something that's going to create a big mass in your garden. This is one that you put in a spot where you can get up close and appreciate it. It gets these little pink clusters of flowers. There's also some really nice dark pink cultivars and some white cultivars, and it really does well with our hot, dry conditions. In fact, if soils are too wet or they stay too wet, this is where this plant would actually suffer a little bit. So this is the kind of weather that sea thrift really loves.
All right. And you've already inspired me to spend too much money at the garden
I know,
center.
it's easy to do.
Right. Okay. What else, Aaron?
So a lot of the things that we like for hot, dry locations, sunny, hot, dry locations are kind of later in the season bloomers. And one of my favorites that fits this very well is the aromatic aster. So this is Symphyotrichum oblongifolium. It's called aromatic aster because the foliage is really aromatic when you crush it. But what I love about this aster, the other kind of common aster that we see, it's a lovely plant, is like New England aster or New York aster. And these are lovely plants, but they tend to be very large for a lot of perennial gardens. And what I love about aromatic aster is that it's smaller, more compact, stands more upright, which is nice. So plants tend to be about 2 foot tall, maybe 3 foot tall at the most. And then late in the season, they get completely covered in purpley, kind of lavendery purpley flowers. There's this really lovely cultivar that is pretty common called October Skies that has almost a sky blue daisy-like flower on it. The butterflies love it. It's nice to have something like that so late in the season, and it's not uncommon to see this thing in bloom all the way through October.
Wow.
In our gardens. So that's kind of a fun one that's coming up here soon.
Absolutely. It just extends the summer season a little bit. What else is on your list, Aaron?
Let's see. Of course, I have to talk about butterfly weed. And there's a lot of different Asclepiases out there. And many of us are familiar with milkweeds because of the monarch butterfly. And of course, we know that they are the host plant for their caterpillars. And this is a very nice garden perennial milkweed. When we think about the classic milkweed, sometimes, we like it, but it has weed in the name for a reason. You know, it can get a little out of hand accidentally in our gardens. But what I love about perennial milkweed or this butterfly weed is, again, it's not quite as seedy as the more common milkweed is. And it has these beautiful, just absolute orange flowers. And we don't see that color orange very often in our gardens. We see a lot of reddish oranges or yellowish colors. This is just like a beautiful orange color. It's also a smaller statured plant, which is nice. This is one a lot of people get nervous about in the spring because it comes up super late in the spring. Sometimes it's June before it emerges from the ground, but it loves hot, dry weather, so it catches up with all the other ones really quickly and serves as a great nectar source for butterflies beyond the monarch, and of course, could be a host plant for their caterpillars too. So it's just a nice one. Mine in my garden right now is in full bloom, and it's just lovely to see those little orange flowers, and the butterflies like it too.
Yeah, ours is blooming right now, and we saw 6 caterpillars on it the other day. So
yes.
It's doing its work for sure.
Yep.
All right. I think we have time for a couple more. What's next?
Okay, so I also really enjoy blanket flowers. And this is another one. The Gaillardia is the genus name for this. This is another one I'm seeing a fair amount in garden centers. And there's some really lovely cultivars. All of them are in warm colors, so reds and oranges and yellows. And a lot of times the flowers have all of those colors in it. So it's a daisy-type flower with a big fluffy center. And then they usually radiate out from either reds out to oranges and yellows or the opposite, yellows out to oranges and reds, depending on the cultivar. It's another small statured plant. I didn't realize until I was sitting here getting ready to start here that I have a fair number of kind of small statured plants on my list. But I like these plants because they fit in our yard. I can always find a spot for them somewhere. I can shoehorn them in. So,
right, and you can put the ornamental grasses behind them.
Exactly. Nice. And what's nice about the Gaillardia or the blanket flower is this is another kind of front of the border plant. Loves hot, dry conditions. It's thriving right now. It blooms for most of the summer. And I even think the little kind of spent flower heads are kind of fun. They're just like this little puffy, it's like the puffy center that's left behind. And even that's somewhat attractive. This isn't necessarily, a lot of the stuff we've talked about here today is native. This one's native to Eurasia, but is still a lovely plant for our gardens. Because of its size and its beautiful reds and yellows. There's one called Mesa Peach that is particularly nice. And one of my favorites in my garden.
All right, and it doesn't get out of control. It's an
it
import
doesn't.
that's easy to manage.
It is easy to manage, yes.
All right, well, some excellent suggestions. Aaron Steil is Iowa State University Extension Horticulture Specialist. For more gardening information and tips, please subscribe to our Garden Variety newsletter. You can find out more at iowapublicradio.org/garden. I'm Charity Nebbe. It's Talk of Iowa from IPR News. I'm Charity Nebbe. Today is Horticulture Day. With me, Iowa State University Extension Horticulture Specialist Aaron Steil. Also here today, DNR District Forester Mark Vitosh. Hello, Mark.
Good morning.
I already asked Aaron if he was seeing lawns around the state that were looking a little worse for the wear. It has been hot. It has been dry. Are you seeing that take a toll on trees?
Actually, my granddaughter Frankie has learned what a stressed tree looks like in the last 2 days. Papa, what's wrong with that tree? And once she sees a maple tree turning fall color in July, she looks at me and goes, "Stress, right, Papa?" And I said, "Yes, tree is stress." So in our urban areas and towns, parking lots and stuff, we're seeing a lot of maples and others start to show that fall color already. That's always a good sign that there's some moisture stress or some kind of stress. But even in some woodland areas where maybe the soil's a little sandier and stuff, we often see yellowing, like on cottonwoods, river birch, and others. The interior leaves will start to turn yellow. We're also seeing, because we had early moisture on things like walnuts, we have anthracnose, which is a fungus, but that disease doesn't really show up till late fall. So just the weather up and downs and stuff has shown some different extremes. So yeah, we are starting to see some stuff out there.
All right. Well, you can call and join the conversation with your questions about your stressed trees or really anything else you want to talk about. Give us a call, 866-780-9100, 866-780-9100. You can send email to talkofiowa@iowapublicradio.org. And I'm going to start with kind of a technical question, Aaron. This one's from Art in Edgewood. He says, I have 4 La Roma 2 tomato plants, each with a nice crop of developing green Roma-shaped fruit, maybe 3 weeks from harvest. 2 of the plants, however, have set on a single early fruit well ahead of the other fruit on the same plant, and that one fruit is only a couple of days from harvest. This freak fruit, in contrast to the green Romas on the same plant, appears to be a beefsteak type tomato with a slightly flattened globe shape and 4 inches in diameter. Romas are determinate, and plant genetics does not allow for two vastly different shapes to appear on the same plant, but that's what I have on two separate vines. I have traced the stem on both of the affected plants to ensure that there's not a second stealth plant involved. Do you have any idea what might be going on?
Oh, this is interesting. So there's a lot of, this is where plant variety comes from, right? So I suspect that for whatever reason, there has been some kind of genetic mutation, basically, that has caused a different type of fruit to develop. And sometimes those things happen in response to certain environmental conditions. So it's not uncommon for some very extreme weather or certain kind of factors, all different factors kind of coming together that might cause something like this. I would be interested to see what grows from the seed that comes from these not bizarre looking tomato. I'm sure they look like a perfectly lovely tomato, but for the cultivar that you thought you had, I would be really
Art,
interested.
if you want to keep your science experiment going,
yes,
save the seeds, plant them, and then call us next year.
Yeah, and tomato seeds are actually fairly straightforward to save, and so it could be a really fun kind of extension of this project. It's likely just a kind of a freak, kind of weird development of the fruit, and we see this in plants sometimes, and obviously there were some conditions in his garden that just made it perfect for this to happen.
Very interesting. All right, we've got one for you, Mark, from Jim in Colo. He says, we've had a windbreak of 5 white pine for 10 years in a location that used to have blue spruce. In early July, we noticed that all of the needles on one of the white pines suddenly turned brown. We cut this tree down last week and submitted samples to the Iowa State University Plant and Insect Diagnostic Clinic, and we are waiting for the results. In the meantime, an adjacent tree has had about 10% of its needles turn brown. Is there anything I can do to save this tree and the remaining trees that aren't showing any symptoms yet?
So my guess is it's probably not a disease. There's not a lot of common... Well, I take that back. We used not to see pine wilt on white pines. We saw it mostly on Scotch pines because the nematode actually can be in white pines and live and not actually kill the tree. But there always is that potential. So it could be pine wilt. The thing I would look at on this wilting tree is, since it's only 5 years old, but we've had different stresses and stuff, and depending on the soils, I would look along the stem and along the branches to see if I see any sawdust or small holes. We have these little bark beetles that can come on stressed trees, and they can often kill that tree very quickly. If that is it, there's really no treatment, but it tells us that those trees are extremely stressed, and then maybe some moderate supplemental water and those kinds of things. If they have a soil that's had too much water, there's not much they can do. But I would look for potential sawdust and potential attack of bark beetles, which might indicate some further stress on those trees that might have to be attended to.
All right. Well, and then he has one more follow-up question.
Yeah.
He says, can we replant white pine or any other type of evergreen in this location, or would you not do that?
Well, the thing I would look at is try to figure out, obviously, what's going on. If it's soil-related and stuff like that, I would look at those soil conditions and see if white pine is the best situation. The one thing I can tell him is he probably lost his spruce to needlecast or something like that. That generally does not affect white pine, so those don't tend to cross into that. I would really probably dig up those trees and make sure that they either weren't planted too deep, there wasn't some stem-growing roots, or some other thing that's causing stress to those plants. To me, it sounds like there's definitely something on the site or something that might be impacting those, and I want to figure out what that is. And if it's something that can be controlled, then maybe they can plant white pine again. But I would want to try to really figure out
put a pause on that until you
see what the cause
understand
is.
What's happening. 866-780-9100 is the number to call with your questions. You can send email to talkofiowa@iowapublicradio.org. Joe is up next in Newton. Hi, Joe.
Hi.
What's your question?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I have an acre of land. I just had it treated for crabgrass, creeping Charlie, all that. So that was last week. I'm going to have the yard aerated, and then I want overseed.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, how many pounds of seed should I buy? I Googled it, and it said 130 to 80 to 130, I believe it said. So I just...
All right. So even if you can't give him a figure, Aaron, what's the best way to figure that out?
Yeah, so it's not going to be. There are a lot of different kind of calculators out there that can help you figure out the amount of seed for a new kind of establishment, bare ground basically. You definitely don't need that density of seed, and I would say that somewhere between a quarter and a half of that is probably what you would need if that's what the calculator is figuring out. It is going to be quite a bit of seed. I mean, an acre, that's a football field. That's a lot of grass. So there is going to be quite a bit of seed to put over this. And so that number doesn't sound outrageous at first kind of glance or at first kind of look. So the big thing I will say is when you do overseed, the most beneficial thing you can do is make sure that that seed comes into good contact with the soil. And that can be really difficult with overseeding. So making sure, like right after aeration is actually a perfect time to do that. A lot of times they will break up the cores, and then all that will mix nicely with the seed so that you get good soil contact with the seed and have a lot better establishment. That alone would help you get the most out of the money you spent on the seed, so that it doesn't feel like you're buying all this seed for all this money and not getting as much of a bang out of it as you would hope.
All right, Joe, good luck with that. You can give us a call, 866-780-9100. Send email to talkofiowa@iowapublicradio.org. Your plant and tree questions today. Richard is up next in Des Moines with a unique question. Hi, Richard.
Hi, how are you?
Good. What's your question?
Well, I've got a question as to, with all the weeds that we have in Iowa, why don't farmers or the people who bring these to farmers markets, the ones that are edible, why don't they bring them to the markets, like dandelions and chicory, chickweed? I mean, I've got a list of like 20.
Are you a big forager, Richard?
No, my family was. Many decades ago, they used to eat dandelions and Swiss chard and all that sort of things. And I was just wondering why nobody does that. Because it's a waste to try to kill them when we can actually eat them. Especially when we have so many in this state.
All right, Richard, thanks a lot for the question. Aaron, this is an economic question in many ways.
Yeah, it is. I guess it's all about demand, right? And also one of the kind of limitations with any kind of foraging when it comes to weeds in particular, like dandelion or chicory or some of these others, is that you really do have to understand how the space has been treated, because if it has had herbicides, those things are typically not labeled for edible plants. And so we would want to make sure we were very understanding of how this place has been managed, where these plants are growing. In many places, they've probably been managed in a way that we wouldn't want to eat them. So I don't think, certainly you can do this. I don't know. There's a lot of people. Maybe we just need to figure out how to make dandelion wine more popular again or something. I don't know.
So many of the greens that we do grow and sell, the horticultural farms around the state, started as weeds, and they've been bred to be something that is palatable and easy to grow and easy to manage. So, if you can forage in a safe space where you understand the chemicals that have been applied or not applied, that seems like a good idea. I think that mostly it is economics, though, don't you, Aaron? There's not a lot of people really asking for this at this moment.
No, and willing to pay for it, especially if you know your backyard, you can just get it out of your backyard.
Richard, thanks a lot for the call. 866-780-9100 is the number. You can send email to talkofiowa@iowapublicradio.org. Sarah is on the line next in Muscatine. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Charity. I love your show.
Oh, thank you. What's your
my question today is I have some hostas that are turning brown, and my friends came by the other day, and they said, I think your plant has a disease. I had just thought maybe they're tired out, they're too crowded anyway. Mm-hmm. Is that normal if the leaves are turning brown and curling up a bit?
It can be when they're under kind of drought stress or getting too much sun or a combination of both. That absolutely can happen. There are a couple of disease issues that impact hosta, although they tend to be pretty hardy, disease-free plants. The two big things, actually one's a pest and one's a disease. There is a kind of a petiole rot that happens that can cause dieback and hostas, and this can be kind of a serious disease, especially if you have a lot of hostas. That would have some characteristic things. The leaves would die back, but you would also see kind of this at the base of the leaf where it kind of connects to the crown of the plant. You would see some kind of mushiness or decay. And if it's just kind of brown and dry, it's not likely this issue. The other thing that we see this time of year that really starts to show up is slug and snail damage. Leaves that are heavily damaged by the feeding from slugs will definitely brown up when it gets hot and dry more quickly than the other leaves will. The spring was pretty good conditions for a slug or a snail, and so that may be something that you're also seeing. When hostas, often hostas can tolerate a wide range of conditions. And so they end up in places that they really don't love, but they tolerate. And then when weather gets extreme, they show that. And so I see that often with hosta. They end up in more sun than they usually do, but if they get enough water, they're fine. But then if it dries out, they really start to look ragged. And so looking at your environmental conditions, how much sun is it getting? How dry is it? And if those things are kind of on the higher end than they normally are, then it's likely just a response to the weather. You can clean up the dead material. You probably won't get a lot of new growth, if any, but at least it'll look a little nicer.
Okay, and one just quick follow-up. My hosta bed is too crowded anyway, and what's a good time to split the hostas?
My favorite time to do this is in early spring, just as those little points are sticking up out of the ground. I like this time of year because it's easy to dig the plant up. There's no foliage in the way, but it's also easy to see where the plant is. A lot of times hosta dies out in the center, so it's easy to see that and not accidentally, split that with some of the divisions. So that tends to be kind of late April most years, early or mid to late April, depending on the spring. So you can do it in the fall too, if you're really antsy or if you have a lot of work to do. So you can do some of it in the fall and some of it in the spring. But if I had to pick, I would do it first thing in the spring just as they're emerging.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the show, and thank you for Iowa State, and thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. You have a great day. 866-780-9100 is the number for you to call with your questions about plants and trees. You can also send email to talkofiowa@iowapublicradio.org. Don in Algona is up next. Hi, Don.
Hi there. I want to go back just for a second to, in your first segment, you were talking about purple coneflower. And if anything shouts Iowa, it's a cornflower. Last year, I started a small wildflower patch. I got seeds from Seed Savers Exchange in Decorah, and it was absolutely gorgeous. It had everything in it. A couple of coneflowers came up. This year, coneflowers have taken over. I can hardly see any other flowers. I know now what they look like when they're first coming up. So this coming year, I'm going to get down on my hands and knees and pull out a lot of these cornflowers. So I just wanted to warn people that these are very prolific.
All right, Don, don't plant cup plants, okay?
Yeah. Yes.
You may not have seen prolific quite yet. Thanks for the call, Don.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
you're welcome. Bye.
There.
Thing I will add, though, sometimes these things take time and things do jump out ahead. And
Yeah.
often other things will kind of pop in as time goes, too.
All right. And I've never complained about too much coneflower, but I have struggled with too much cut plant. All right. We are going to take a short break. We'll be back in just a few minutes. It's Horticulture Day on Talk of Iowa with DNR District Forester Mark Vitosh and Aaron Steil, Iowa State University Extension Horticulture Specialist. You can join the conversation, 866-780-9100. This is Talk of Iowa. It's Talk of Iowa from IPR News. I'm Charity Nebbe. Today is Horticulture Day, and we've got some experts in the studio to answer your questions. DNR District Forester Mark Vitosh is here to answer your tree questions. And Aaron Steil, Iowa State University Extension Horticulture Specialist, is here to answer all of your other plant questions. Give us a call, 866-780-9100. Send email to talkofiowa@iowapublicradio.org. Scott is up next in North English. Hi, Scott.
Hello.
What's your question?
This deals with grasses. We have several miscanthus, morning lights, a zebra grass. They grow beautifully. They've looked wonderful for years. And now as they mature, they die out in the center. They get too thick. And so they begin to grow just on the edges.
Yep.
Do you have any advice on what I do with that?
Yep, that's very common, especially for that particular grass. The way to get rid of that dead center is to dig and divide, and basically divide out the clumps and get rid of that center and then replant them. And you can plant the other clumps somewhere else. You can give them away. You can compost them. It doesn't really matter necessarily, but that is very common for this plant. The best time to do that, you could do it in the fall. It takes a lot to dig this plant out. I prefer to do this in the spring, mostly because there's not all that grass foliage in the way. So just as it's starting to come up, this one emerges a little bit later. So it'd probably be more like early May, maybe even mid-May, digging it up. I have used a Sawzall to cut this grass apart because it is pretty dense rooted. So it will be kind of a workout if that's something you want to do. Apart from the way it looks, though, the dead center is not a problem to the plant. We just don't like the way it looks. So if it doesn't bother you a whole lot, you don't have to do anything.
I'm curious, do you think that a mantis killer dropped right in the center and held in place would do this for me?
I think it would just bounce right out. This one's pretty dense. I mean, even all that dead stuff in the center is so dense. It would be difficult to kind of cut through it with a small tiller like that.
Well, as long as we know we're healthy, we'll start digging. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for the call, Scott. 866-780-9100 is the number. You can send email to talkofiowa@iowapublicradio.org. Cecile is up next in Iowa City. Hi, Cecile.
Hi. I'm calling to ask Mr. Vitosh if a flowering horse chestnut would grow well in Iowa City.
Well, the challenge with horse chestnuts, they're beautiful. There's some red varieties, I believe, that are nice. That the caution I would give is if I was to do it, I would put it in a protected, like a north or east area where it doesn't get exposed to a lot of heat. The challenge we see with horse chestnut and even buckeye sometimes in exposed areas, they'll get a lot of leaf scorch, especially in late August, early September, and they kind of really lose that character. So if I could put them in a place where they could be kind of protected, I think you could experiment and have one. It's just I wouldn't put it in a south or southwest exposed area.
Though it would be a southeast exposure mostly.
That wouldn't be as bad as the Southwest. I mean, it really wouldn't be. I'd be more concerned about the West, but I would just be aware that it might have challenges during drier conditions.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot for the call, Cecile. 866-780-9100 is the number. Email talkofiowa@iowapublicradio.org. Ryan is on the line next in Polk County. Hi, Ryan.
Good morning. Thanks. My question is about prairie restoration. I'm in eastern Polk County and been working on prairie restoration in my yard for about 6 years. This spring I burned and then I hit my canary reed grass and smooth brome with some clethodim because it was choking everything out. It really burned it up, and now I have, according to iNaturalist, David's spurge that has moved in, and I've seen it in my prairie before, and it's kind of cycled out. I'm kind of wondering if there's something I need to do to that particular plant, pull it or spray it with something, or will it really just cycle out?
I don't know about that particular weed. I'm sure it's taking advantage of all the open space that the brome and all that was there. I would be inclined to go in and spot spray it, if for anything to help reduce the seed bank. You're getting to a point where this thing is almost to the spot where it can really be much more managed on its own rather than having so many interventions. That first, especially the first 7 years, requires so many interventions. So you're so close to this. I would try to reduce that seed bank by getting in there and either spot spraying or hand pulling if it's not too much to do that. I don't know how big the space is, but both of those I think would suit the area well.
Mark,
Ryan, I would also suggest that being in Polk County that you contact your local Natural Resource Conservation Service office or Soil and Water Conservation Service office. And even if you take some pictures and send them what you got and stuff, they have a lot of experience working with prairie and CRP and those kinds of things. They may have some input as far as management and where you're at also. They don't do a lot of site visits for yards per se, but I bet you could talk to them and show them some pictures and stuff and get some ideas on potential management.
Ryan,
that's a good idea.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the call and good luck. 866-780-9100 is the number. You can send email to talkofiowa@iowapublicradio.org. Helene in Urbana called, but she couldn't stay on the line. She says, I have a lilac tree that seemed to die off, then ended up reblooming the next season. What is up with that? Aaron, what's up? What's up with that?
The last few years, lilacs have been really stressed out.
They have had a hard time. Yeah,
it's been a rough couple of years for lilacs, and so these are tough shrubs and trees, but especially the common lilac. And I don't know if this was it could have been Japanese tree lilac or something like that, but I've definitely heard people call common lilac a tree too, so I don't know which species we're talking about, but there are a lot of foliar disease challenges with these plants, and again this year. And so I suspect that it had a lot of defoliation last year because of some of these disease issues, and it doesn't kill the plant, it just makes it look like trash for the last part of the season. And they're able to come back from that. Good cleanup in the fall will help kind of reduce this a little bit, but the biggest thing that leads to this is the weather conditions, especially in the spring. And so we can't control that. So sometimes we just have to deal with it.
Yeah, since she was having trouble with her phone, she emailed more details, but this is exactly what you just described. She said in the last couple of years, the plants have started to shed their leaves and look like they're at the end of the season in July, but then in August, they tend to regreen up a bit, and I have a few really anemic-looking flowers that show up.
Yes. And it's not uncommon for lilacs to bloom in the fall after a really stressful period over the summer. That happens too. So that's probably what's going on. They probably have some pretty significant disease challenges. The best you can do, we don't usually recommend spraying for this because it isn't lethal for an established lilac. The best you can do is just good fall cleanup and then hope for favorable weather.
Right. And also, she should know she's not alone. I mean,
Oh, no.
we had a whole bunch of these calls last year.
Yes,
So-
and the year before.
Right.
And it's just been a rough couple of years for lilacs. There's the disease pressure is really high right now.
I've had one in my backyard for 5 years that's gone up and down, up and down, up and down. And if she Googles it and puts Iowa State Extension, there is a good sheet on these different diseases and stuff that she can look at just to see if that's what's happening related to lilac. Yeah. There's a great publication out there.
I was really relieved to have beautiful blooms this spring. So this is just...
It still happens somehow.
Right. Occasionally there's
It's
still
been 3 years
beautiful
on mine.
and
I'm
smell
still
amazing.
waiting.
I'm sorry, Mark. Maybe next year's your year. I
Okay.
probably won't have anything next year.
All
All right, let's go back to the phones. Judy is on the line in West Des Moines. Hi, Judy.
Hi.
What's your question?
3 years ago, our church decided they'd start a community garden. So they just tilled up some of the yard, just tilled up the grass. And I'm wondering, how should we be treating it in the fall or the spring, early spring, to increase fertility?
Oh, sure. So the best thing to do in this situation is to introduce organic matter. So whether that's compost that you bring in or whether you collect leaves and shred them or create a compost pile and then work that compost in once it's ready. Adding organic matter, especially in a vegetable garden situation, is one of the best ways to do that. You could also bring in composted manure, and the fall is the best time to do that if you decided to do that. But all of these things help improve soil structure. They help improve water retention. They can improve fertility, and all of those things are super important for a vegetable garden. So however you can get it done, adding organic matter is probably the place to start.
Judy, thanks so much for the call. We've got a tree question for you, Mark. Karen is on the line in Martell, Iowa. Hello, Karen.
Hello. I have a windbreak, arborvitae windbreak, that we put in after the derecho. So it's about 5 years old. The trees are about 7 feet tall. Some of them are turning brown, and with all the rain, I look and can shatter it onto white paper. I think I have spider mite on some of the trees. I'm not sure how to treat that.
So there's a if you Google spider mites, there's information through Iowa State on what timing and those things. If you shake that, though, usually with spider mites, you'll see more of a gray kind of, not a true brown right away. And if you have enough spider mites that are really causing browning, you would have little dots just running all over the sheet. So if you don't have a lot of little dots just kind of all over that sheet when you shake it, you might not have a big enough population that's really causing damage. But I'll tell you, I drive around a lot, and I am seeing some browning arborvitae in different places, and there's a couple things. If you've had a lot of moisture in your area, depending on your soil types, if your soil's a little heavier, you could actually be getting too much moisture. The other thing I'm seeing in Martell, you're kind of on the border, but I'm getting reports of bagworms that are insects, larvae, that actually will create little bags and turn the tree brown, but you'll see these little, that look like little cones hanging. I would look to see if I see any of that. But I would probably do some more shaking to see what my population is, but then maybe even some digging in the soil a little bit to see if my soil is a little mucky. If it's a little mucky, I might be getting a little too much moisture, which there isn't much we can do in that situation.
Sure.
So it could be multiple things.
Been watering. I've been letting nature do it this year. So,
but I might probe a little bit just to see what that soil type's like. I mean, if it's real sandy, then that's probably not an issue. But if you're pulling a lot of clay and stuff out of there, you still might be getting too much moisture, and that could be an issue too. You might want to take some pictures and send those to the Iowa State University Disease and Plant plant and disease clinic, because sometimes they can look at those pictures and then ask you to send samples in and go from there too. Because there could be some needle or leaf diseases too. There's multiple potential things there, Karen, that you could maybe be dealing with. But if there's not a lot of mites, that may not be the big issue.
Karen, thanks so much for the call. And William is on the line in Iowa City. Hi, William. Maybe William is not on the line. All right, let's give Al a try in Ames. Hi, Al.
Good morning. I've got a couple of quick questions. First of all, what's the yellow flowering weed that you see all over town, just overflowing along curbsides, taking over lawns, and seems to be really invasive?
Bird's foot trefoil would be my guess, Aaron.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. Bird's foot trefoil.
Say that again.
Bird's foot trefoil.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does broadleaf weed killer get it or not?
Yeah, it would. It absolutely would. That plant is really, it kind of comes up a little bit later in the season, becomes really noticeable this time of year. You could spray it now if you wanted to. You could spray it in the fall too. Usually fall applications are a bit more successful.
All right, and did you have another question?
Yeah, 2 years in a row. I've always had some marigolds in a little area surrounded by a limestone border, and it's pretty heavy soil. And after heavy rains, and I don't know if it's causative or coincidence, they die. Last year, the whole 8 or 10 of them just died at the same time. This year, slowly they're dying off, where none are left. Is that likely too much rain, or?
I mean, it very well could be.
Pretty hardy.
Yeah, they are pretty hardy plants, but they don't tolerate real wet conditions very well. So if you suspect that the soil is staying wet, that is likely the reason for the dieback, especially when it happens this time of year, because normally this time of year marigolds are actually doing the exact opposite. They're like really growing and thriving.
Yeah.
And so go ahead.
Mix in some sand or...
Sand doesn't always help this situation. Usually we recommend compost to help kind of loosen the soil, especially if the soil is really heavy. Compost feels like it holds a lot of water, but it introduces a lot of airspace too, and that's really what's important. Sometimes sand will just, especially if the soil is really heavy, sand and clay can make it even more brick-like. So organic matter compost would be the best thing.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks a lot for your call, Al. And we are out of time. Thank you, Aaron Steil.
You're welcome.
Aaron Steil, Iowa State University Extension Horticulture Specialist. Mark Vitosh, thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Mark Vitosh, DNR District Forester. And of course, we'll be back again with Horticulture Day next Friday. Talk of Iowa is a production of IPR News. Our producers are Danny Gear, Samantha McIntosh, and Caitlin Troutman. We get production assistance from Nev Kelly and technical support today from Tony Sarabia. I'm Charity Nebbe. Have a great weekend.